All right, we're back. Another episode of the Branded Podcast. This is going to be a Portland edition. Ron's back home, so he won't be doing this episode with me, and we're running on West Coast time, so going to be a little bit of a different setup here. Got the honor of interviewing the man, the myth, the legend, one of Jordan's signature designers, one of the very few, D'Wayne Edwards. If you want to say hello.
Hello. How you guys doing?
So talk about your beginnings, talk about where you're from.
Beginnings, that's a long journey, man. I'll try to give you the edited version. So I am raised in Inglewood, California, and home of the second original home of the Los Angeles Lakers. Original home is Minnesota. Now they actually play in LA, but forever they played in Inglewood. I mention that only because that was kind of my first taste of kind of the idea of being kind of a professional athlete. Because at that time, this was in the mid '80s. They didn't have practice facilities like they do now, so the Lakers practiced at my high school. Right. And so every day during the season when they were in town, I would see Magic and Kareem and Worthy practicing in the same gym I played in. So that was really the first moment where I started kind of collecting sneakers, honestly, because before that I would just wear them. Okay. But I always had to have different sneakers than everybody else. So I would customize my own kicks because our uniforms were green and white. So no sneakers came in green and white. They came in all white, white, black, white, silver. Right. Maybe white, red. So I would paint mine white and green. And so I started customizing like in '86 and started customizing for the whole team and the girls team. And so that was kind of my hustle in high school was customizing along with just drawing. Right. So I was always drawing sneakers since I was in middle school, actually even elementary school. But it was just another object for me to draw because I was born with the gift to draw anything I could see. And I just gravitated towards just always drawing sneakers every day. Right.
So, like, where did you pick up drawing that? Was that something that you always did? Did you see, like, family members doing it?
Yeah, I was born with, I would say, 25% of the gift to draw. I had two older brothers, Michael and Ronnie, who were also born with the gift, and they could draw much better than I could. So what they did was they would show me, they would critique my work. Right. So if I'm drawing something, they'll show me how to do it the right way or new tricks and techniques. And so I would say they got me the other 50% of the way, and then the last 25 was just pure diligence and repetition. And I started taking it more serious when both of them passed away before I was 19 years old. So for me, it became more of I saw both of them not get a chance to fulfill their artistic ability, right. And I didn't want to waste mine or even get a chance to not fulfill mine. Growing up where I grew up, it's the same as any other inner city in the world, pretty much, where if you black and you're a male, if you make it to 18, that's successful. Right. And so, every milestone, 18, 21, 24, I'm still breathing. So I wanted to make sure that I continued to make sure that they knew that, I was doing something with the gift that they helped me develop. Right. So when you were coming up and drawing, like, what drew you to sneakers and, like, what made you hone into that specifically? Honestly, it was baseball cards. So I used to draw football players, specifically like Franco Harris and Tony Dorsett on baseball cards. And I remember one time they showed the whole body because normally they'll just cut off at the knees or at the calf. Right. And one time they had the whole body of Franco Harris, and he was wearing some pony cleats. And I was always used to drawing from the ankle, or not from the ankle or calf up. And so I kind of got really skilled at doing that. And when I had to draw shoes, it was really difficult because I hadn't really seen it before, and it was really odd angles. And I just started focusing on just drawing the shoes over and over and over again. Right. And then it just became looking for pictures in magazines of sneakers that I would just start to redraw those. and I would draw them on 3x5 index cards. And at some point, I just started drawing my own versions of the stuff that I saw instead of just drawing what I saw.
Right. So going through high school, I saw that you actually entered a footwear competition, and that was kind of like your entryway into the professional world.
Yeah, 17 into the Reebok design competition. They were looking for new talent, and they figured, they would, instead of going the traditional route of going to colleges, they just ran a design competition. And the problem is they didn't expect a 17-year-old black kid to show up or win, for that matter.
Yeah.
So I ended up winning it, and the reward was a job, but I was too young to get the job.
Right.
And so they ultimately sent me on my way and told me to come back and see him once I graduated from college. And I was not too happy about that because I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and college wasn't in my future.
Right.
And so I kind of gave up on that idea of being a designer because I knew I wouldn't be able to get the education experience needed,
right.
According to what Reebok told me to get into the industry.
Even though you showcase the skills that you can actually do it and get the job done.
Yeah. And, from that moment, I was pissed off at Reebok, but I was very thankful for them too, because they gave me a chip. They were one of the first few people to put a chip on my shoulder of proving people wrong. But it also, in hindsight, now it reminds me of the fact that, the business of design is a talent business. And, it doesn't matter what design school you attended, the piece of paper ain't gonna make you good. Right. It's what you do if you get an opportunity to go to college. It's what you do when you're there.
Yeah.
And if you don't get a chance to go to college, then it's about how hard you put in your skills at home. Mm-hmm. And so for me now, in retrospect, it was just my first, foray into understanding that, design at least is a talent business.
Right.
It's not like other professions that, you have a prestigious degree that says you're qualified to do this.
So you get there at 17, end up not getting a job because you're too young. So how did you get back into footwear and get into the industry?
I stopped drawing for a while, and then I just got mad and started drawing more than I ever had, and graduated from high school and just started working odd jobs. All through high school, I worked at McDonald's just to feed my sneaker habit, quite honestly.
Mm.
And a friend of mine, his aunt was kind of the hiring director at this accounting agency called Account Temps, and so we signed up for it because I didn't want to work fast food for the rest of my life. So we signed up for it, and he was given the assignment to go to this footwear company called LA Gear, and he couldn't find it, and so she was mad at him and sent me the next day, and I found it, and so I started working at LA Gear in '88, a few months after high school, as a file clerk, and my job was just to file papers in alphabetical order. Yeah. But at the same time, it wasn't lost on me that I was at a footwear company, even though LA Gear wasn't a company that I was wearing. Right. But it was still a footwear company. So for me, the door. The door was there, and the door manifests itself in the way of a suggestion box. And there's these little small wooden boxes they put in every department, and looking for the company employees to give them feedback, full-time company employees to give them feedback on how to make the company better. And I just put Skechers in the suggestion box, so they didn't know if I was a full-time employee or a temp.
Right.
And I figured I had nothing to lose, and so all I did was just put every morning at home, I'll draw something up and come to work, drop it in a box, and go to work. And about 6 months of doing that, then they called me in and offered me a job shortly after my 19th birthday.
So did they just get tired of you filling up the box and sat you down?
Yeah, at some point, the box was full, and they all ended up on the president's desk. The president of the company's name is Robert Greenberg. He had all 180 of my sketches on his desk when he called me into his office. So back then, you got to understand, there was no There was no Google. There was no email.
Right.
If they wanted you, they called you over the intercom system, and everybody heard. Mm-hmm. So, when I got the call, D'Wayne Edwards report to the president's office. I'm like, why? What did I do? Right. So when I went in, he had all of them, and he asked he's like, how long have you been here? And I was like, well, I've been here about 7 months. And he said, what department are you in? And I was like, I'm in accounts payable, filing papers. And he was like, he said, well, do you want to be in a design department? And I was like, yeah. So he hired me on the spot, man. And he wasn't concerned about if I went to college or anything. He just saw talent.
Right.
And from that moment, I just started my other hustle of just busting my ass every day.
That's good. So, what projects did you start working on once you went over to the design department?
First project was back in the early 90s, LA Gear had this collection of product called Street Hikers. And that was like the big thing for them. I didn't touch any of the Michael Jackson stuff. And then I got a chance to work on some revisions for like a shoe for Kareem, for Shaq when he was at LSU, and then for Karl Malone. So it was interesting how now, in retrospect, over the course of the whole career, I've worked on 4 shoes for 4 players that are the top 5 scorers in NBA history.
Wow. And then that kind of came full circle because you were going to the Lakers practices when you were in high school, and then you got to work on their shoes.
Oh, yeah. It even came even more full circle because Magic Johnson was here like 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And we was chopping it up, and I was like, man, remember when you used to practice at Inglewood High School? And he was like, yeah, I remember. And we started talking about that. And so it was crazy how life works. Yeah.
So how long did you spend at LA Gear?
I was at Gear for 3.5 years. And then I left, moved to Detroit, worked for the small footwear company. That didn't work out too well, but it was great experience. That was the first time I ever saw snow. Never saw snow before until 92. So I was 23 years on this earth, never saw the snow before.
Wow.
So I went there, and then before I left, I told I left because the owner of the company, Robert Greenberg of LA Gear, he left. He cashed out and left the company, and so I didn't want to be there if he wasn't there.
Right.
And before he left, I told him, I said, man, there's this apparel company called Cross Colors and Karl Kani that they're about to blow up, and you should figure out how to work with them. And so I left and went to Detroit, and that was actually pretty cool because I got a chance to meet Marshall Mathers and Proof and all the D12 crew before they got on.
Right.
They were performing at the hip hop shop. Maurice Malone, who was also another black designer, he had his own little store called the Hip Hop Shop on 7 Mile, and every Saturday night they would go just open mic, and before all these dudes got on. So it's kind of crazy to see that now of what that turned into, but that was probably the best thing happened when I moved to Detroit was that. But about 8 months into being in Detroit, Robert called me and said, hey, I just signed a licensing rights to design footwear for Cross Colors and Karl Kani, and I want you to come back and head up the division.
Right.
So I left. So I was only in Detroit for 11 months, got out of the snow, went back to California.
You were like, thank God.
Yes. So I started designing footwear for Cross Colors and Karl Kani in 93, and started working with Tupac, Snoop, Biggie, Dre, all when they're in their early 20s.
What was that
Pac
like?
was still a teenager. Biggie and Pac were still a teenager when I was working with them.
Right.
And then Dre and Snoop, and because they were sponsored by Karl Kani and Cross Colors. Well, they were just giving product.
Yeah.
Back then, there was no sponsorship deals.
Right.
They were just giving free product, and they would just wear it. So I was designing the shoes that go with the clothes for those guys that they would wear.
So was that like meeting with them and working with them?
What was crazy, dude? It was like we were all around the same age.
Yeah.
So, we all young, and, we not knowing that life was going to end up the way it ends up. And so it was just being in that environment where it was kind of the birth of the black designer with Karl Kani and Karl Kani in that early time, and so many other black designers came from that era. There's a great documentary called Fresh Dressed on Netflix. Yeah, if you've checked it out. So that was that whole era.
Right.
So it was just something that we was just doing stuff that we thought was relevant. You know, we weren't thinking about the future. We all from the hood, dude. We weren't thinking about future. Yeah. It was just like right now. So it was just a good time of just trying to create and be different.
So you going from there, you left Karl Kani.
Yeah. So I was there, and the license ended, and Robert moved on and started doing some other stuff, and I started working on my own brand actually, because I was going to leave. So Robert left LA Gear and started a company called Skechers, and Skechers was a licensing rights for Karl Kani and Karl Kani. So when that ended, I didn't necessarily want to design shoes for Skechers, so I was going to leave, and he offered me my own brand. So I had my own brand for a short period of time called City, Sity, and it was wild because there was a magazine called Sporting Goods Business, and they rated my brand the second brand to watch out for in 2000, behind Jordan.
Wow.
And so we got it going. We launched it, delivered the first shipment, first season. And the company Skechers was going public. So when you go public, you have to clean your books up. So you have to divest of things that's not making money or new. And so I was that. And so he ended it, and so I left and started a consulting business. And then a friend of mine who worked at Adidas told me that a friend of his who works at Nike is looking for someone who can do boots. Because I was doing all of that lifestyle boot stuff. Okay. So I came up to, they offered me a job. I flew up to Nike, had an interview. I had like 8 interviews in one day.
Wow.
All day. And they were like, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks to the day, I got 2 job offers from Nike. And I took the first one that called me. And so the first one was ACG, so All Conditions Gear. So they hired me in 2000. And at that time, started working on a boot called the Gold Dome, and so did that boot, Gold Dome 2, and we had other boots that went with it. And about a year into that, or 6 months into that, the Jordan brand was like, hey, we need some extra help, because Jordan was on the 4th floor, I was on the 3rd floor.
Right.
And so, because I would just walk upstairs and just to see what was going on in Jordan, just because it was there. So I was doing side projects with them while I was still in ACG, and the director ended up leaving Jordan, and then they hired me as a senior designer in Jordan. Another designer left Jordan, and then they hired me in his place. And then 6 months into joining Jordan in late 2000. And a few months in, the director left, and so I became a design director in 2001.
Wow.
And so from 2001 to 2011, I was a footwear design director for Jordan.
So what was that whole experience like? Because I know you were one of the only black people that was designing at the time, and one of the youngest.
Yeah, man. It was, when I got in, I was the second person of color designing shoes in the athletic footwear industry in '89. I met the first when I got to Nike. His name is Wilson Smith.
Okay.
And so Wilson and I worked together in Jordan, and they were still, even with Wilson, me and Wilson, and we had E. Scott Morris, Jeff Henderson. There was another brother there. There was still only about 8 of us in the whole, 8 to 10 of us in the whole industry, and half of us was at Nike and Jordan. Jordan for me was not even a dream. I mean, Nike was a goal and a dream, but Jordan was just, for me, visibly unattainable. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
And once I got there, it was an amazing moment, but full of pressure, self-imposed pressure, because I was a consumer of Jordan product before I was able to design it.
Right.
And I had a different relationship with the brand because I was a consumer first. and so I just didn't want to do anything to mess with the brands. So the pressure was greater for me, at least. But it was amazing, dude. It was amazing to work with Mike and Melo and CP and Roy and Derek Jeter and Sap and all those guys. Yeah. And what was the best part about it was they just normal dudes.
Right.
You know, once you get past the, you know, when it's just you and them, there's no fandom, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so they just normal people, so they could be themselves.
Right.
And it was good to see that they just normal people. They just famous and rich.
So what was it like meeting Jordan for the first time and then working on his signatures? You
know, what was crazy was Suzette Henry and I, who was material director for Pensole, a year before I started in Jordan, we were in Vegas at the Magic Show, which is the largest apparel and footwear show in North America. And we had heard about the Jordan brand was having this party. Mm-hmm. And so we was like, okay, we got to go to this party. So like we spent the whole day trying to figure out where this party was because it was like a private party. Right. And so about 2 a.m, we just gave up. And so we was just walking back to our hotel and I saw Michael walking.
Yeah.
And so it ended up the party was at our hotel.
Oh.
So like the whole time we were at other hotels. Yeah. And the party ended up being at our hotel, and that was the first time I saw him in person. And I've only seen 2 people glow. Dude had a glow, and the other person was Hank Aaron, and it was like he was way bigger than 6'6". He was at least 8'6". But it was kind of crazy to see him, and so we just walked by. And a year later, I was sitting on the couch presenting the shoe for him.
Wow. Did he remember you from that moment?
Nah, hell no. That was stressful, dude. Yeah. Because even though I'm from LA, everybody loved Mike. Right. You know, and you know he won his first chip in Inglewood too, by the way, against my Lakers. But it was nerve-wracking because here's this guy that you've seen on TV and you idolize his shoes and you have a chance to present to him, and the thing you don't want to do is just fuck up, right? Honestly. But I got wind of how he was as a person with designers, and you know he was you know he was kind of not hard on designers, new designers. He would just haze them a little bit, mm-hmm. You know, to earn your spot, which is fine. Right. So, you know, I found out that he was, you know, he's very thorough, and you know, he'll call bullshit on something if it's not legit, or if he doesn't like it. So I was just prepared, and once you know he was drilling me with questions, and I was coming back with the answers, and it was fine. You know, once he knew that I knew what I was talking about, mm-hmm. Then there was a sense of, oh, okay, you did your work. Right. You know, and that was all it is. He just wanted people to do work.
So when you got there, did you start out working on signatures immediately?
Oh, hell no. The first basketball shoe I did was the New Retro 2, which was my version of the Air Jordan 2 that I did in high school. So in 1988, when the 2 came out, that was the last shoe I did as a high school senior, which is my version of what it looked like. Yeah. And 12 years later, I got paid to do it for real. So that was kind of one of those moments of confirmation. I'm headed in the right direction. Yeah. The first shoe I worked on was it was a boot called a Profiler. So I did boots and casual stuff at first, and then I started doing sneakers after that.
So what was the first signature that you actually did end up working on?
First signature was Melo.
Okay.
Yeah.
1.5?
Yep.
Yeah, that was definitely big. I'm being from Baltimore. That was like a crazy shoe there. Yeah. Everybody had a pair.
I actually did the 5.5 first, and then we switched to the 1.5.
Okay.
Because it was the beginning of this 0.5 series. But yeah, it was cool. Melo was a good dude. I met him for the first time as a rookie in Denver. He had just got to Denver, and I remember he was he was in a 5,000 square foot apartment overlooking all of Denver. Mm-hmm. And, and I'm just like, dude, how does it feel to go from like a 500 square foot dorm room
right.
to a 5,000 square foot apartment overlooking the whole city? And he was just like, dude, it's not even realistic. Like, it's just not. Like that whole world, I can't even imagine what that world is like to go from broke to rich, like overnight. Right. Like that's not healthy, honestly, because you make poor choices. As you see, you guys make poor choices. But he was what I loved about Melo was that he was extremely humble, and grateful, mm-hmm. right? Where he had it in perspective he had everything in perspective of where he came from and who he is and what was happening, right? Yeah. And it was good to see, a guy that was, even though he was a rookie, he's 19, mm-hmm. but he was still humble enough to understand and appreciate where he was at.
Right. So what was that whole concept between the 0.5 series?
It was, so the conversation was, we didn't want him to have a signature shoe out the gate because we felt it was too much pressure mm-hmm. for him to have a signature shoe in Jordan because we knew that everyone would be comparing it to an Air Jordan, right? Right. And so what we wanted to do was bridge, slowly integrate them into the brand. Mm-hmm. And so the 0.5 series was this. It was actually created originally by E. Scott Morris, and E had this idea of like this concept of what if we redesigned all the Jordans, what would they look like? Right. And if we redesigned them as a bridge from one to the other. And so what I did was I asked E if I can have that concept, and I changed it to what if all the Air Jordans were designed for Carmelo? Mm. What would they look like? So that was how the 0.5 series came up. It was more of a what if kind of idea.
And what was his input on the process?
Early on, it was that whole process was new to him. Right. He was used to buying sneakers, right? and not all of a sudden getting anything he wants for free. I really treated him, quite honestly, like a student. Mm-hmm. Because I told him the first time we met, I was like, I need you to give me feedback and insights because this shoe has your name on it. Right. And it needs to be authentic to who you are. I'm just the vehicle to help you create a product and help people better understand who you are as a player and as a person through a product. Right. And I think that really helped kind of level setting the relationship because from that moment on, I was walking him through the whole process from showing them early sketches, showing them what the briefs look like and how that works and why I'm doing it, early sketches, and getting his feedback on first samples, second samples, like showing them the parts that normally the athletes don't see. Right. Because I wanted him to understand how the whole thing worked. And it was good. I think he appreciated it. He was really into it. And I think by the time we got to, I think it was the M4. So we did the 1.5 and the 5.5, and then we switched to his series because we felt after 2 he was ready to have his own. And so we went to the M series. So it was M3. Yeah. So it started at 3. And by the time we got to the 5, the 4 and the 5, Melo was using the Illustrator. Like, wow. I was showing him how to drop color in on Illustrator. So he was, because he would ask for colors, like, well, I'm going to show you how to do your own colors. Yeah. You just send it to me. So showed him how to do that, and so he was dropping colors in Illustrator and sending them over.
That's crazy. So working on Melos, how did you end up working on the signature Jordan line?
So it was a rotational thing. So when Tinker decided to not work on it after or in the middle of the 16, Wilson Smith finished the 16, and then Wilson took the 18, and then it's a lot of pressure working on a Jordan, dude. So I think it kind of burned him out a bit, and then Tate Kurbis, Tate worked on he took the 18 and the 19, and then Tinker came back for 20, and then Wilson or Tate didn't want to do the next series, so I was next in line. So I took 21 and 22.
Did you get to work with Tinker when he came back?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, even before that, when I started doing Melo stuff, that was the first thing I went. I went to him because he did the 5 and the 6,
Right.
And that was where the 0.5 was. He didn't do the 1 and the 2, but he did the 5 and the 6. So I went to him and asked him, like, okay, if you could redesign the 5 and the 6 today, what would you do different? Mm-hmm. So I want to get his insights. Plus, to me, the Jordan brand is Tinker's brand. And, I told him, I said, dude, this is your brand. I just don't, I don't, as a director, I want to respect the fact that you built this brand. And, I hope you're okay with me coming to you for guidance and insights to make sure I'm carrying on the legacy that you've created and you want to see for the brand in the future. And Tinker's a good dude, man. He was completely open to the idea and available anytime I needed him, which was really cool.
That's good. So technology has been a big thing for Jordan Brand. Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that you guys discussed going through the process of creating the shoes, and how does that whole process work?
For us, for us while I was there, the Jordan Brand was about performance, but we wanted you to experience it. Mm-hmm. Where we weren't big on showing you it. Where we didn't have big airbags and we didn't have shocks and we didn't have overt visible technology.
Right.
And so we focused on creating performance that you experienced when you played in the product. Mm-hmm. And so all the things that we did was mostly on the inside. And so we over time, of course, we always use Air and Zoom Air. And for the 20, Tom Foxon, he created the IPS system, which was our own system, mm-hmm. Our own technology, so to speak. And, again, classic to Jordan, it was internal. You didn't see it. Right. You felt it. And so for the 21, they wanted to elevate the IPS system. And so for the 21, we made made it tunable, meaning you can remove the heel pod and change the airbag from a regular airbag to a Zoom bag. Mm. And then the marketing team was like, well, we got to see something. And so for the 22, they wanted it visible. Right. So we made a rear window in the back. We didn't want to put it on the side because that's what Nike's airbags look like. So we put it in the back, but it was also true to the design inspiration as well. And then since it was a 22, we just doubled up the airbags. So we put 2 airbags and 2 Zoom bags, making it interchangeable. The idea for the 22, though, was to make the entire midsole come out and be interchangeable. Right. And we just didn't have enough time to test it. And so we put it on the back burner and we went with what we went with. Mm-hmm. But it was good to see it come out. Right. It took like 4 years later. But it was good for it to come out. But that was the original format. That it was supposed to be the whole midsole was going to come out. Okay.
And materials play a big part. And actually, when you first came over to Nike, there wasn't anybody that did materials, right?
No, man, no. Jordan, since the 2, with the was it not the eel? Gator? Was it gator, eel? What animal? I'm missing the animal. Damn it. But it was a reptile. It was on the side of the 2. And so, from that point, that was kind of really the first time that performance sneakers had a little bit of a lifestyle feel to it. Yeah. And snake. There it is. So it was it's kind of like a snake skin on the side. Right. And then the 3 happened with the elephant print. Mm-hmm. And then that's when, people started knowing the product for its elevated materials. And so shortly after I got there, I remember there was a great lady I worked with named Suzette Henry during my Skechers time. And I was like, man, we need to get her here because she can elevate the materials even further. Mm-hmm. So Suzette joined us, and she joined Nike first because we didn't have any open spots. Right. But then we stole her from Nike when we got her into the system. Suzette was the first material designer at Nike, and the first one at Jordan.
And what was it like working with her?
I was working with her since my my Skechers time, and it was refreshing because I never really understood the power of materials. I was so focused on design, and materials was kind of the afterthought, where I would do materials last, where as I'm doing the colorways and just picking from a book and doing stuff. And it wasn't until she joined where she started to educate me on the power of how materials can change a design and how it can elevate a design. And so she played a huge role in me being more interested in a bigger picture of design, instead of not just focusing on the functional pieces from a technology point of view, but understanding that materials could also be functional, where I just didn't understand that. But yeah, she played a huge role in my development as a designer.
Do you guys ever like bump heads during the process?
All the fucking time. But it was healthy though, because she fought for the things that she wanted, and sometimes they were too much money, and I wanted to spend money somewhere else. Because she was an advocate for materials, and so that was a part I respected, because it's like, well, I asked her to give me what I needed, and she gave me what I needed. It just cost more than I wanted. But no, it was always a healthy give and take.
Right.
It was always a healthy give and take, because we understood that we were working for the greatest athlete ever to play a sport, and we knew that we were a limited few of people who had that chance, and so our disagreements was just, we wanted the best for everything, and at that level of wanting to produce the best thing just created that healthy dialogue.
So you spent almost a decade at Jordan Brand. What was the decision to leave?
Along the way, throughout my whole career, Google happened. And the idea of me putting Skechers in a suggestion box is now the whole damn world can see it. And so what ended up happening was people start figuring out my email address, and they would send me Skechers and stuff. And it just reminded me of when I was trying to get on. And I started to realize, like, there's more people who want to be footwear designers, because it wasn't at the time something you could study in school. You had to actually be of the culture and the industry to really want to do it, or know that it was a real viable opportunity. And so when I started receiving sketches from kids, I was like, man, we got to create some kind of outlet for these kids. And so I went to Nike and I said, I didn't get here the normal way as everyone else got here. And I said a couple other black designers didn't get here the normal way either. And I said, it would be great if we could figure out some kind of way to give some of these kids some hope, or a hope and a platform to give them a path. And so they allowed me to create this program called Future Soul in 2008. And I created this program where it was a nationwide high school design competition. And I was doing all the Melo stuff at the time. And I was like, dude, I need a favor from you. I need to know if you can endorse this program for me, because it's getting kids interested in design. And he was like, yeah, I'm in. Sign me up. I was like, you're not getting paid. I was like, he doesn't care. He's like, I didn't care. So he was on, and then Lisa Leslie, she's from Inglewood as well, and so I asked her to join, and same thing. She's like, I'm in. And so I needed two faces. I needed two powerful black faces to head up this program, and one, Lisa representing the females and Melo representing the males, and we launched it in 2008, and we had 800 kids apply for this thing, and then next year was 10,000. Third year was 250,000. Fourth year was 890,000. And then I left. But along the way, it was kind of like, wow, there's a lot more people who want to do this thing. And so doing that program reminded me of an original thought that I had when I was a kid. It was like, damn, it'd be great if there was a footwear design school, because that's what I wanted to do when I was growing up. And so doing that program showed me that there's an opportunity for it to happen. And So I did the program and I left. I took a sabbatical. So when you work at Nike for 10 years, you get 4 weeks off.
Okay.
So I took 8 weeks off, and I left to start this pet project to see if it would work. Mm-hmm. And pet project was called Pensole, and see if it would work. And so we flew in 41 kids from all over the world just to try this 2-week thing and see if it would work. And it worked. From this one class, we had some of the top design schools in the country, at least, calling and saying, "Hey, can we partner with you to bring this program to our school?"
Right.
And so we had like top fashion schools. Parsons, we had Parsons contact us, and we did a program with them. Art Center is a top product school in California. They contacted us, and so I went back to work, and the whole time I'm like, I want to do this other thing. And so I told him, I told Jordan, I was like, I'm going to leave in about 8 months. I'm going to leave. And I said, I'm going to leave and do this thing. And I said, I'm going to help you more when I'm gone than while I've been here.
Right.
And I told Nike and Jordan that. And so I officially left on April 1st, 2011. And everybody knew it wasn't a joke. But I left to do Pensole full-time because when I started teaching, I fell back in love with design. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize by working in a corporate structure for almost 24 years how much they took away.
Yeah.
It took a lot of creativity away, took a lot of natural love for the idea away. And it wasn't until I was amongst students who were hungry and wanted to know the information that I knew. I didn't know how much I knew until I was asked. And then I didn't know how much, like I said, how much the companies took away from me.
Right.
And I wanted to stay in that environment. And so, I prepared to leave. I made sure that the brand was in as best as position I could leave it before I left. And so I left in 2011 to open Pensole full-time. And then MIT contacted me and asked me to teach there. And so what I wanted to do was, because I didn't go to college, I didn't know what college was. Right. Like, I didn't know how you taught at college. I didn't know what that was about. So my goal was to, let me learn from the best schools in the world.
Yeah.
Let me see how they do it. And so I just took notes at Parsons, took notes at how Art Center does it, how MIT does it, and how schools in overseas do it. And I crafted my own curriculum of how Pensole should be, combining some of the great nuggets from the top design schools and the process I know is needed to work at a company. So I crafted our curriculum based off of those factors. And it was a little nervous. Other people were nervous for me because I gave up probably the most sought after job in the whole footwear industry to teach. But it was as hard as it's been from a financial point of view, because I've spent my own money to do it, and I did that on purpose because I think entrepreneurs sometimes when they have an idea they ask for money too soon,
right? Where
they don't bake the idea right. They don't prove the concept works first, and they don't build a brand yet. And I don't know if you watch Shark Tank much,
yeah,
but
I love
okay.
It.
So if you watch Shark Tank, the people who get deals, they have things. The people who get good deals have a couple key ingredients. They either have a patent of something, they already have sales, or they have a solid brand already established. They're the ones who get good deals. The people who don't have those things, either they don't get a deal or they get a bad deal.
Yeah. Okay.
So I knew that, and I was like, I don't want a bad deal. I don't want to build a company and someone owns it. Like, that makes no sense to me. So I was focused on building the brand, and so I built it on my own dime. And now I have people coming to me to give me money instead of me going to them to get some money. And so that was important for me, was to build it, because I knew if I told people 7 years ago that, okay, I'm going to build the only footwear design school in the country, and we're going to work with the top footwear brands in the world, and we're going to work with all the top design schools in the world, and we're going to work with all the top retailers in the world, and we're going to supply the industry with designers every month. Nobody would believe me. So I was like, I didn't say anything. So I just did it. And then now people know.
So you created this school. Like, what's the process for people to actually come here and learn and, study under you and learn the process and get into the industry?
Well, I mean, you've been through it. So it's simple, dude. You just send in, I don't ask for portfolios. If you're trying to apply for footwear design, I just want you to send me a sketch by hand, one sketch by hand. If you apply for color material, you just send in as best as you can a color material palette, and we have examples on the website, so you know what that is, because color materials is not a profession people are aware of,
right?
But it's one of the hottest jobs in the industry. Or if you apply for business or the brand design side, you just put together a one-page go-to-market strategy. Like, I try to simplify the barrier of entry, because we make up a lot of excuses.
Right.
Okay. And I don't know if you ever heard that song Cube did called Us on Death Certificate. But it's true. And that shit was done like 20 years ago. But we make up a lot of excuses for stuff. And I say we, I mean people of color.
Right.
We make up a lot of excuses, and we complain about, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, or that person did this, or that person did that. Whereas, like, I'm trying to simplify it as simple as I can make it for you just to even try. Now, you may not be good enough to get in the first time, but keep trying.
Right.
But it's a simple barrier of entry. And my goal has been from day one is to make sure the industry looks more like me and you, because it doesn't. When you go when you go visit these corporations, it doesn't. But when you go to the sneaker stores, it does.
Right.
That shit doesn't make sense to me. Why we keep buying shit and not making it? We hustling backwards, man. We hustling backwards.
So you've done the World Sneaker Championship, and you got some other competitions coming up. What's coming up next for Pensole?
Yeah, man. So what we want to do is make education fun, and so created a global design tournament called the World Sneaker Championship, open to anybody in the world. So that one is really as a way to find the best sneaker designer in the world. The winner, it's like the NCAA tournament. Yeah. So top 64 are selected, and every week you compete and go round by round. The winning designer gets $20,000 plus, and then their shoe sold at Foot Locker. And all you gotta do is send in a sketch. Yeah. Like, that's it. Like, I don't even understand. But so we got that. This fall, we're launching a extended program with a college locally called PNCA, Pacific Northwest College of Art. So we're offering a 3-month program that's all accredited. So if people are in college now, they can come here and go back, get credits for it. This fall, we're going to launch a nationwide high school program for high school kids online called Sneakerhead Estate. And then next year, we're launching a global online program. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is really reach people and develop them as best as we can online so they can get here in Portland and be in a position to work at some of these companies. Okay.
And apparently you were approached to do a reality show for Pensole.
Yeah, that little show. So yeah, we were approached last year by Google. They are investing heavily into their pay service called YouTube Red, which is their version of Netflix. Right. And so they saw kind of what we do and what we've done. And actually a guy by the name of Mike Wartzman, I was in a book called Smart Cuts. And I was the epilogue in this book called Smart Cuts. And Mike read it. He's in LA actually, and Mike read it, and he was like, he emailed me and said, hey, his business partner, Greg, emailed me and I said, hey, would you be interested in doing a TV show? And I didn't email him back because I've had several of those emails, and I didn't like what they wanted to do.
Right.
And so he emailed me back, and he was like, "No, I'm serious." And he sent his kind of credentials and Mike's credentials, and so I set up a call and we talked, and I was like, "Yeah, well, this is what I want it to be. I don't want it to be no drama shit. Nobody gets kicked off. I want it to be as close to what we do from an education setting as possible." And so they were like, "No, we'll agree." And so they approached a company called Lagardère, and Lagardère had a relationship with Google. And they, a couple months, and they were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so 6 months planning and getting contestants, and we started filming it and finished filming at the end of April, beginning of May. So we finished an eight episode series. So it'll launch on YouTube end of August, beginning of September. So I think the first 2 episodes will be free, and then the remaining 6 will be pay.
Okay.
But it was a crazy experience. Adidas stepped up as a brand sponsor, so all the students will work on Adidas shoes, which is super cool. We got Damian Lillard on the show, James Harden on the show, Eddie Hong on the show, Ashley Graham, Anthony Anderson. I'm just laughing because we had a good time on the show. So Anthony Anderson was on there, Macklemore was on there. It was good. Fetty Wap was on there. It was good.
Yeah.
So I think people will like it when they see it.
And then the other thing, like you bring everything that you kind of did at Jordan, and even the technology standpoint, you brought that here. Like right now, we're sitting in a sampling lab. Yeah.
I mean, you can only design so much. You got to make it at some point.
Yeah.
And that was important for us to have a facility that pretty much mirrored exactly what you would have if you worked at a company. So we have all the same equipment to make shoes that Nike has. Maybe they got a few more things that we don't have, but we have the majority of it, and we have all the software that they use and the equipment as well. So I don't want, and same with the materials library where Suzette's there is the M Lab. We got all the same materials Nike has. So for us is the goal is, as a student, we want you to be able to work on the same things that the big companies have. So when you get there, there's no drop off.
Right.
If anything, you go in there and say, "Hey, do you got this?" So for us, it was important for us to make sure that we had the most creative environments we can create, and the most equipment that's useful to build product.
Yeah. So we have this part of the podcast. It's favorites, pretty much just a quick shot.
Yeah.
You just say what your favorite things are. So I know you're big on quotes. So what's your favorite quote that you have?
Probably from my mother. It says, "Actions speak louder than words." It's the first quote you see on the floor when you walk on a pencil. And that's because I believe it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I talk to, and 95% of them are full of shit. Now, when I say full of shit, not bad people. They just want to talk.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I don't want to talk unless we're going to do something. And every day I get a request for, "Hey, can we go get a cup of coffee?" I don't even drink coffee. So it's like, for me, it's like, you reach out to me, we need to do something. I don't want to talk. Either we're going to do something or we not.
Right.
And so for me, it's actions speak louder than words.
And then you have a large library of books down there. What's your favorite book?
Rules of the Rubber Red Ball by Kevin Carroll. It's a book that made me, that was the final step for me to leave Jordan, because it challenged me to understand why I was on this earth.
Okay.
And what I want to do next.
And I guess your favorite shoe design, either that you've done or just all time.
My favorite Jordan is the Air Jordan 3, which was Tinker's first. I don't have a favorite shoe that I've designed, only because then I wouldn't be motivated to do another one. So I don't have a favorite one. I have 2 that I'm excited about. One is a new Retro 2 that I mentioned earlier, because that was, for me, the moment where I realized that I was where I was supposed to be and I was on the right track.
Right.
Another one is a project that is not come out yet. It's a project that I've done with Adidas and Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Okay.
Where there's a kid, I call him a kid, he's 21, but a kid by the name of Tunav Nana, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer.
Right.
And so he was a part of the Make-A-Wish program, and his wish was to design his own sneaker. And when you're a part of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, you can damn near get almost anything you want.
Right.
I mean, obviously within reason.
Yeah,
but
right.
You can pretty much get whatever you want. Like they really try to accommodate every single wish. And he was telling me the story about his first wish was to just take his family to Hawaii. Yeah. And then he said on the way to the office, he realized like that really wasn't what he really, really wanted. Right. And he said, because he's a huge sneakerhead, he said he really wanted to design his own sneaker. And so through the power of networking, a lady who worked at the Make-A-Wish, one of her good friends worked at this software company that made footwear technology. And she knew me. And so she emailed me and said, hey, would you be interested in talking to them? And I was like, yeah. And so they emailed me and told me about Tunav, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. I didn't know how I was going to get it done, but I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Right.
Because he could have had anything he wanted, dude. And that was his wish, was to do something I've been doing for 28 years. Mm-hmm. And that just puts things in perspective, And so I immediately called or emailed people I know at Adidas and said, hey, would you be interested in working on this project with me? Yeah. And they said yes, like immediately. And so that was the first shoe I've done since I left Jordan.
Wow.
So it's not coming out until maybe later this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess to wrap up, we have all of our guests submit what we call the Branded 10. So it's a 10-song playlist of your favorite songs just to give the guests an insight of what you listen to. I hear a lot of old school hip hop, so I enjoy listening to that, walking into that every morning.
Okay.
Goes up on Spotify, so if you can, submit that for the podcast, that'll go up with the episode.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So looks like we're running out of time here. We got to get back to work. Got another day of
that's right.
things to get done. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you sitting down with me.
Yeah, man.
I'm enjoying my time here. I love it. It's one of the most creative and beautiful space I've been in as my time working. So I appreciate it.
I'm glad. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. Send me the link. I want to hear it.
Definitely.
Make sure I don't sound too crazy.
All right. Well, another episode of the Branded Podcast, Conversations with Creatives, and we're out.